All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us here on the next edition of the Franchise Your Business webinar series. My name is Tom DuFore. I'm the CEO of Big Sky Franchise Team. And just give you a quick housekeeping items as we have some guests loading into the session here today. But we are, if you have not done so already, make sure you subscribe to our podcast, the Franchise Your Business podcast. That's where you'll catch the replays of these, and this will be republished up on YouTube next week as well. So if you see this and you like this, you'd love to get someone, share this with someone, it's available for you. And then the second housekeeping item is just be on the lookout here for our weekly webinar or weekly podcast that we publish called Multiply Your Success. We've had some great guests on that recently. And today, I'm excited to have our guest with us, Brett Gilliland, and with Elite Entrepreneurs. And he's the co-founder and CEO of the organization. And he's going to share with us, really his specialty is working with businesses that are at that $1 to $2 million-ish zone range and helping you really push and grow. And I've really had a great chance of getting to know Brett and attend some of their sessions and programs, and I've really enjoyed it. And their content is absolutely phenomenal. I said, Brett, we've got to have you on the program and on our webinar series. And by the way, he was on our podcast as well, so we'll make sure we link that back again. But we thought this is a great opportunity for you to share directly with some of our clients and people in our network here. So, Brett, with that, I'll turn things over to you and let you take it away.
Well, thank you, Tom. I really appreciate you having me here, and I love what you're doing with Big Sky Franchise Team. There's so many businesses out there that need the kind of guidance that you guys provide. And today, what we talked about is helping them with some of the scaling challenges and we framed it as common pitfalls that 1 to 2 million businesses face that keep them from growing, that get them stuck. And so we'll have a little conversation about that. Because I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of something like this, I did create some slides just to have a little bit of visual stimulus here and to facilitate the flow of our conversation. So I'll go ahead and share those. Do we have a way for those who are dialing in, do we have a way to check in with them and see where they're calling in from?
Well, I'm not able to see necessarily where they're calling in from, but I can see, for example, for any of the people who are tuning in live, if there are questions, comments, or maybe even just if you're in a place where you can type into the chat box, just let us know where you're dialing in from. So I happen to be remote today in Indianapolis, so I can type that in to get us going. So here we go. We'll get that going for us.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to have as much interaction as people are willing to do, because there's going to be some times and chat's a great way to do it. There's going to be some times where, I'd like to ask some questions and get some real-time interaction. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, so I'll share my screen. Share a lovely background. Okay, so as Tom mentioned, my name is Brett Gilliland. My company is called Elite Entrepreneurs. If you're in that 1 million plus range, we actually named our business after you. I'll say more about that later, but we think you're elite, that there's relatively few that get to that $1 million mark. So today we're going to talk about those common pitfalls that keep $1 to $2 million businesses from growing beyond that. And so here we are. If you have the ability to put in the chat or submit a guess, I'm curious to know what you think. What percent of businesses never grow to $1 million plus in revenue in the first place? And so, Tom, if you want to be the proxy for everybody else here today, since I don't have like live interaction necessarily.
Yeah. I mean, I can fill in the gaps and jump in on some of this. I mean, percent of businesses that never reach a million in revenue, I don't know. I'd guess small businesses, I'm just thinking maybe 70%.
All right.
I don't know.
70% that never make it to $1 million. The number might surprise you. It's actually more like 95%. So
wow.
About 95% of businesses never make it to that $1 million mark to begin with. And that's why we call it elite, right? We're like, you're the elite. Those of you who have made that, and those of you who are still striving for that, it's an awesome goal. And I think business owners start out and they think, I want to grow this thing to 1 million. And in the franchise world, or when you're ready to franchise, you probably need to have achieved that level of success, because what it means at that $1 million mark is you've kind of cracked the code on getting and serving customers, right? Like, you know what it looks like to get your ideal customers and to serve them at some scale. And so it grows to that point, and it's often the case that there's a little bit of sticking that goes on, or a little ceiling that artificially stops you from growing beyond that 1 to 2 million range. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So for those who do get to that $1 million mark, it's not all celebration. We often find these business owners in a world of pain, and we see these types of words, emotions, reality, I guess, thoughts going on. And Tom, you worked with a lot of business owners. As you look over this list, what do you think are some of the ones that jump out for you as like, this is what they deal with?
Yeah, I would say what I hear most often, because this is exactly so many of our clients, the majority of our clients are falling in this category. Firefighting for sure, feeling alone, stuck working in the business. You know, they know they need to work on it, but just feeling like they're kind of stuck in that. And often that's driven from that employee turnover, or the team situation where they're saying, you know, man, we lost another person left, or we can't find someone. We're unable to hire someone to fill a need. So the owner is then kind of in the day to day of the operation and doing, you know, a job that maybe is, you know, a $15 or $20 an hour job, and when they should be doing their owner level role and position.
That's right. And that just confirmed for me that you, like you said, this is squarely where most of your clients are, and they're experiencing this, and you're seeing and hearing it just as we are. And it's kind of a tragedy, because here are these these are value creation people. Entrepreneurs are some of the most valuable, I guess, assets to our world, because nothing we do, nothing we interact with, this microphone, this computer, that you know, the technology that we're able to have this session over, you know, the walls behind me, like, everything existed as an idea first before it was created. And we have these awesome entrepreneurs who are building great products, great services, and then this happens to them, and they become overwhelmed, and they become stuck, and their ability to have a bigger impact in the world gets stifled unnecessarily, by the way. Like, there's stuff that we can do. So that's the spot we're in. This is a famous quote that many of you have heard, even if you've never heard the source. The guy's name is Marshall Goldsmith. He's a famous coach to some of those high-tech entrepreneurs and CEOs in Silicon Valley. And he famously said, what got you here won't get you there. That's a truth we all kind of inherently know. But when it comes to this plateau that we often hit around 1-2 million in revenue, we don't apply this thinking. And I'm inviting you to apply this thinking. All the things that you had to learn to get you to this point in business are necessary but insufficient to get you to where you want to go next. Here's another help with this. This comes from a company called Keep, where I spent a fair amount of time. These shirts on the wall behind me here represent 10 years of me helping them go from 7 figures in revenue all the way up to 100 million. And we were serving tens of thousands of small businesses. Okay, that was a software company. We had 25, 30,000 users on our software, companies using our software. And what we found is that there were these patterns on the 1s and 3s of revenue. Basically, every time you triple in size, you've maxed out what your current thing can do. So from 100,000 to 300,000, the key, or the biggest hurdle there, was learning how to sell. We've got to figure out sales. From 300,000 to 1 million, it was that consistent lead generation and that consistent fulfillment of more and more customers. So marketing and service, or marketing and fulfillment, is another way to think about that. And so you've created this steady operation that now can grow into the $1 million mark. But then once you get to this 1 to 3 million range, there's another hurdle. And we try to, these are simplified, but it's about people and systems. It's about, now we've got a growing number of team members. How do we hire more team members that are the right ones? How do we organize the team members we have so we're taking targeted, coordinated action as one team? And what are the other leadership systems, the other people systems involved with leading a growing team? So that's the 1 to 3 million range, and then 3 to 10. By the way, 10 to 30 is the next one. 30 to 100 million, next one. Like, every time we tripled, and every time a business triples in revenue, they hit a new little plateau, and they have to figure out the hurdle, or they got to get over the hurdle that allows them to keep going. Tom, I may have shared this with you. I don't remember. If I haven't, I'll share it now. And if I did, I apologize for the repeat. But one of my favorite analogies about these stage changes is being on a bicycle that has multiple gears. And when you start out you're riding on the bicycle, you start out in a gear that is appropriate for that start, right? That's comfortable when you're starting out. And you start pedaling, and you start to get yield out of that bicycle. And then you're like, I want to get a little more yield out of this bicycle. And so you pedal more, and you get more yield. But at some point, when you stay in the same gear, no amount of killing yourself pedaling faster is going to get you that additional yield you're looking for. And that's the concept here with the stage changes. Once you've built, your business today is perfectly designed to get the results you're getting today. And if you want to get 3x more result, you got to change the way that you are set up. You got to change the way you lead. And that's challenging for a lot of us. So I just wanted to give this as framing. But when you're working so hard to get more yield out of that bicycle, or more yield out of that business, and you're pedaling, because you've applied all the grit and tenacity to get to this point in the first place, you think more grit, more tenacity, but that doesn't get you significantly more yield. It might get you a little bit more, but then you're on the verge of burning out if you try to keep that up. So if you've been on a bicycle like that and you shift gears, that moment where you shift gears, all of a sudden, a similar amount of effort, or even less, will get you more yield out of that bicycle, right? You're at a place where there's already some movement in that bicycle. And so changing gears, and I'm not great at physics, but changing gears allows you to apply, there's a little more leverage going on to where the equal or less effort will actually yield more result out of that machine. So Tom, why don't we pause the monologue piece here and have you chime in with your own experience at what it feels like when you're starting to tap out in a certain gear, when you feel like you're starting to get stuck in business, and then when you figure out what that next level thing is, and you start to see that additional yield or lift again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great analogy. I don't recall in our previous conversations you had shared that with me. So I think it's a brilliant analogy, especially looking at the stages that you have here from stage 1 through stage 5 that you have listed on here, and thinking of stage 1 even as, first gear on the bicycle, and stage 2 is second gear, and then third gear, and fourth gear, and fifth gear. And as you keep pushing that up, I mean, the bicycle is a great example, because most people have ridden some kind of a mountain bike or something with gears on it, and you shift. It's like you start at gear 1. It's like, okay, you get going real fast. It's easy to get started, but the peak is pretty early too, just like in this stage 1 that you're describing there. And then you go to stage 2, and then you get a little faster, and you don't have to pedal quite, your feet aren't moving. Aren't moving quite as fast as before at gear 1. And then so on up to gear 5, where you're really cranking. But it also reminds me too, that as you're approaching some of these higher gears, gear 4, gear 5, if you're not careful, and you start to lose some momentum, or you slow down, it's hard to kind of keep cranking in that fourth gear or in that fifth gear. You got then you got to downshift. You got to go back, and business owners don't like to go backwards. So
Well, they
that
usually don't. You're right.
yeah,
But when they're tapped out in a gear, I've seen many business owners start to ask themselves, like, why am I busting my tail to try to get more out of this thing? It was actually easier, and I was making more money, and it was simpler back at that other stage or that other gear. I think I'm just going to settle back. And as soon as that starts to happen, um, I just start to cringe, because I'm like, there's way more potential in this business. You could be doing so much more good out there, and yet, because we haven't figured out how to shift gears, then we're settling back into something that's more comfortable, and that's a shame and a tragedy.
yeah,
So I love the way that you pointed out, though, the downshifting, going back. Like, we didn't maintain the momentum we needed. Now we got
right.
to come back here and get it right.
Yeah, no, and it just reminds me of, just as an example, we're looking at, stage 4 and 5, and even stage 3. You start, it's like, oh, did you implement this biggest hurdle? Did you get over that biggest hurdle, or were you trying to solve that biggest hurdle that you have listed here? And if you haven't, it's going to make working in that gear really hard. It's going to be hard to pedal and keep the momentum going. If not, and the last thing you want to do is downshift back down, and then you're decelerating, and the business, you're contracting as a company. And I've worked with enough business owners that have done that, gone through those cycles, and what they realize is they were unwilling to change. The owner was unwilling to change. The staff, the people, the company was ready, but the owner wasn't quite ready to change. Therefore, they backpedaled a little bit. They got things sorted out, and then went live again.
Yeah, yeah, great. I love how you're enhancing this, because it's way better than me just talking at everybody by myself the whole time. So I think this concept's key. I think everybody gets it, like, oh, the machine that I built is actually perfectly designed. That gear that I'm in right now is perfectly designed to get the results I'm getting today. And if I want a different outcome, a different result, I have to do the work to shift gears. Even if I'm not clear about what that work is yet, at least there can be an acknowledgement. Oh, doing more of the same is not going to yield the better result later. It'll maybe get the most yield out of the current gear that possible, but it won't get me those next gear results. So that's the concept we wanted to get here. Okay, so now I'm going to share 3 pitfalls. We promised common pitfalls for those $1 to $2 million businesses that get stuck. So I'm going to share 3 of them with you today. There are others, but I'm going to share 3 key ones. And then I'm going to talk about some practical things you can do to overcome each one. Okay. So the first one is get stuck in $1 million mindset. This might sound a little difficult or woo-woo for people. It's like, wait a minute, mindset, that doesn't sound very practical. Now, let me illustrate, and I think we'll have a good conversation around this. So there's lots of words on this slide. I want you to pay attention to the difference, and sometimes the subtle difference, between $1 million entrepreneur and $10 million CEO. And there's a lot of intentionality in that framing, right? $1 million entrepreneur, gritty, scrappy, founder, learn and do, right? Do all the stuff, versus $10 million CEO, or a capable business builder. Think about that distinction. Get something off the ground, make the product or service work, expert at delivering results, versus now I'm building a company, I'm leading a team, I'm securing fuel for growth, right? There's a difference there. So
Brett,
Tom, yeah.
yeah, real quick, I'm just going to jump in. What I'm thinking is, for someone who's going to end up listening to this on an audio format, just for a little fun, why don't we read these together? And I'll do the $1 million entrepreneur, and
Okay.
I'll read what their mindset is at number 1, and then you read the $10 million CEO, and kind of go back and forth, and then compare those as
Thank
just
you.
an
Yes.
idea on that.
Great idea, especially for our audio folks only. Thank you. So yeah,
Yeah.
why don't you start with the first one?
Okay, so $1 million entrepreneur mindset says, I need to grow my sales and marketing skills.
All right. And the $10 million CEO says, or mindset is, we need to grow our leadership skills.
Mm. Number two is for the $1 million entrepreneur mindset is I need to find more time to work in my business.
And everybody can probably already tell what the other one is, but the $10 million CEO mindset is we need to make time to work on the business.
Number three for the $1 million entrepreneur mindset is I need to put more time on and energy into completing projects.
And the corollary there for the $10 million CEO mindset is we need to put more time and energy into leading people.
Number four, my plan is in my head and that works for me.
And number four for the $10 million CEO is our plan is on paper and that works for everyone.
And then number five, I'm mostly focused on getting it done.
And number five for the $10 million CEO, we're focused on getting it done and getting it right. Thank you for suggesting that, Tom. That was great. I want to make some general comments about this. And then, Tom, if there's anything else you want to add, you're welcome to do that. But the $1 million entrepreneur mindsets are characterized by the words I, me, my, right? It's still very much reflecting the reality that business owners feel in that stage where it's like the business and the entrepreneur are one. They're like inextricably linked, right? Siamese twins, if you will. And then on the $10 million CEO side, there's a lot of everything says we, our, everyone, the team, right? And of course, working on the business, not just in it. And we're not just doing activities, but we're doing the right activities. So we have to separate business owner from business. We have to breathe life into business and say this business deserves to have life on its own without the business owner being at the core of everything. And that identity separation can be hard sometimes for a business owner as part of this mindset thing. So, Tom, how have you witnessed this in the businesses that you've worked with? What rings true for you?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I completely see this, especially with entrepreneurs and emerging franchise brands that we work with, where the entrepreneur franchises their business and now they're leading other entrepreneurs as a franchise system. And now making that seeing that mindset shift of saying it's not just it's we or us, and it's not my skills, I need to develop my leadership skills, but in order to really grow, it's developing other leaders within my organization to lead. So it's spot on. It's exactly right. I think it's very, very well said.
All right. So as a common pitfall, we get stuck in $1 million entrepreneur mindset. Again, that sounds a little impractical to like, well, what do I do about that? I think some help to flesh this out a little bit more. Just about went to the next mindset. So practically speaking, how do we get after this mindset stuff? I was on a podcast yesterday. It was our Elite Entrepreneurs podcast. I had a guest. His name is Goose McGrath, and Goose he and his partner Gabby grew their business from basically zero, right, startup to over 20 million in revenue in the last 4 years. Okay, super fast growth. In the course of 18 months, they went from like 4 people to 85 people. And so his ability to lead a team of 4 is massively different than what it requires to build and lead a team of 85. Right? Those stage changes require a change in you as the business owner first. And people would go to Goose and say, I'm stuck at 5 million, or I'm stuck at 3 million, or wherever they got stuck. And he would say, no, your business didn't get stuck. You got stuck. Your business can only grow as far as you know how to take it. And it's all down to your growth as a leader, your personal growth as to how far this business can go. If you don't see it, if you can't see it, if you don't believe that it's possible, there's no way for you to lead to that place. And so this mindset thing is key. And what it requires is for you to take is to slow down and do some think time. It's for you to take some time to just think and consider, who am I being? How am I viewing the world? What do I see as possible? What are some sources of inspiration around that? And what Goose did is go and talk with and learn from and study about businesses and business leaders who were at higher levels. How did they speak? Which is a reflection of how they think, right? Their mindset. What actions are they taking? Which is a reflection of how they think and their, all the rest. So he would watch, he would listen, he would watch, and he would start to ask questions and figure out, how do I need to see the world differently? So I hope today, even by Tom and I reading through these five comparisons between the mindsets of the $1 million entrepreneur and the $10 million CEO, you start to see some things a little differently than you did when you dialed into this. So that's the mindset piece. The second pitfall I want to talk about today. Sorry, Tom, that was rude. Is there anything else you want to comment on this before we go to the second pitfall?
No, let's keep moving.
All right. Second pitfall, common pitfall. I'm saying won't relinquish control. And if you hadn't figured out yet, in each of these pitfalls, you could put the word "you" right in front of them. Big capital letters, underlined, bolded, right? You are stuck in $1 million entrepreneur mindset is the first pitfall. Second pitfall is you won't relinquish control. Here's a fun picture. For those of you who are listening only, there's a man. He's hunched over. The upper part of his body is about parallel to the ground. He's hunched over 90 degrees, and he has the biggest, I don't even know if I could call it a backpack. It's a huge duffel bag. I'm sure Photoshop was part of this equation. I don't know. I found this image somewhere. He's trying to ascend a fairly steep incline. It looks like a mountain of some sort. And he has the biggest duffel bag, monster bag I've ever seen strapped to his back. And he's just weighed down, right? He's just weighed down. And this is what it looks like. In fact, I hope you have a sense for what it feels like to carry something so heavy on your back that you're just trying to will it forward. You're just trying to move one more step in front of the other, move it forward. This is what it looks like to not relinquish control. And this makes all the sense in the world. Like, you built this thing from scratch. You know every inch of the machine, if I call it a machine, your business. You know how everything works together. And when something goes wrong, you are the perfect and best troubleshooter. Like, you know exactly where to look and how to fix things, and you carry it all. And for so long, the risk felt like it was entirely yours to bear, right? And in some ways, it will always be entirely your risk, but you don't have to carry the full weight of it alone. And when we fail to relinquish control, we basically say, I can't let go. If I let go, bad things are going to happen. Tom, we haven't talked about this. Do you have kids?
I do. Yes.
Do you have any who have begun to learn how to drive yet?
No, I'm not far off, but I've got a few years yet.
Okay, a few years yet. Well, right now I have twins that are 15 and a half. Okay. There are younger kids. We have older kids. And so I've taught several children how to drive. And right now we're in the mix, we're right in the middle of it again. And when you put yourself in the passenger seat and you have a 15-year-old or 16-year-old, with their hands on the wheel, it's a little terrifying at first. You're like, wait a minute, how do we even allow this in our society? Like this does not seem like a good idea. And that's exactly what's going on with a business owner. They're like, there's several thousand pounds of metal and plastic and rubber going down the road at potentially, high speeds. And I'm trusting all of this in the hands of somebody who doesn't know perfectly how to do this. And it's a little scary for me. And so, Tom, I'm not trying to scare you when it's time for you to teach your kids. But there are moments where it feels like almost like instinctually, you just want to reach over and grab the wheel because you're like, whoa, that's not going to go well. And you want to go grab the wheel again. And that's exactly what happens with business owners. They're like, I can't see us heading towards that disaster and do nothing about it. And so we put our team in situations. If we start to relinquish control, sometimes we do it in a way that doesn't feel safe for us. It may not feel safe for them, and actually puts our business, our vehicle, at risk. And so we have to learn how to do this in ways that are healthy for us, healthy for the team, healthy for the business. But this is the common pitfall, that I cannot relinquish control or something bad will happen. So here's the answer for that. Distribute that heavy load. And for those of you who can't see my visual, I just put an org chart up here. It doesn't matter which org chart I put up here. It doesn't matter what the boxes are, what the titles are. Just think in your mind some organization where we've begun to organize work. That's really what we're doing. We're organizing work and we're giving some of that responsibility to somebody else. And the better we organize that work and the more clearly we hand off ownership, the easier it is for us to actually relinquish control. And so what I would like to say about that is that there's a simple tool that you can use. Tom actually attended part of a workshop I did not too long ago, where I was teaching people how to finally hold others accountable. And at the root of that training is this idea that once you give clear ownership to somebody, it automatically comes with accountability. It's really easy once we're clear about the ownership we're giving to somebody. So you organize that ownership. I use a little tool called Big Three. And really what Big Three is, it's the three most important responsibility of a given role. If I were to take a snapshot in time of the key responsibilities of that role, the measurable responsibilities, it would be the three most important measurable responsibilities of that role right now for the next quarter, let's say. And well written Big Three, or well created or designed Big Three, answer these three questions. What is expected in the role? How will it be measured? And how does it align to company goals? That's it. The top three things. And once you have that kind of clarity, now I can safely hand that off to another human being, an owner, a responsible person, and say, okay, you own making sure that these three measurable things happen. And they could be key activities or they could be key results. But these three things happen in your role on a consistent basis. And by you delivering that, I'm going to happily part ways with some money every payroll and give you, there's a little value exchange going on. Here's pay in exchange for the measurable activities or results that you're going to deliver. These key three ones tell me whether or not that's happening well. And I can feel safe with you at the wheel. So that's the common pitfall, is that we don't relinquish control. And the easiest way to start doing that is to organize work better and give more clear ownership to somebody that says, here's exactly how we'll both know that you've got your hands capably on the wheel and I don't have to sweat it anymore. So that's what I wanted to talk about around pitfall number 2. Tom, any comments or questions? If you want to represent questions that people might be thinking listening to this, or people online might be presenting, what would you ask or comment on?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think you explained that well. I mean, I think these big three, if every leader asked these is during for their organization, it would make everything very clear. So I think this is a great overview.
Okay, my friend Clayton Mask, who is the CEO of that company I mentioned that we grew it to 100 million. He says it this way: entrepreneurship is an exercise in relinquishing control. That's all it is. You're building something up, and then you're finding the right owners to help you carry that forward. By the way, most of the time, it's in a better way than you could do it on your own when you're trying to do everything. Like, you're the master of all the tasks, because at first you had to master all those things and create them. But once you find a dedicated person to take a chunk of that forward, you'll find that many of them can take it further than you could have. And then you're freed up to do more entrepreneurial work, more business building work. And then once you figure out the next thing, you start giving that to somebody else and you go figure out the next thing. So this is just a process of learning and doing, and then finding somebody else to learn and do while you lead. So it's just that continual thing. All right, we're going to go to the next common pitfall. You ready for this? Pitfall number 3, stop learning / growing. Remember, you is in the front of this. You stop learning, you stop growing. That's pitfall number 3. And I already alluded to this with the mindset piece. There might be a little overlap there, but your business can only go as far as your ability to lead it, period. There's no exception to that. Your business cannot outgrow you as the leader. There might be a temporary spike in revenue. There might be a flash of excellence from a market perspective, right? It's like, look, everybody's recognizing they're buying this thing. But that only goes so far. Revenue growth is not the same as sustainable business growth. And if you as the leader don't know how to carry forward a growing entity, then it will stop. It will stop growing at the place of your competence. And what I see often is that scrappy, gritty founders who are really great at figuring out how to sell, really great at figuring out how to market, really great at figuring out how to tune their product or service to the market needs. You start doing all of these things and learning how to do all these things, and then the business grows to a place where you can't hold it all together on your own, and you start to hire a few helpers to take it a little further, but then you stop learning and growing what it takes to shift to the next gear, using our gear shifting analogy from earlier. And so then it's like having a bicycle where the gear gets stuck. And you're like, have you ever had one of those bikes where the gear, the actual shifting mechanism no longer works? And you're like, okay, I guess I'm stuck in this gear. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it happens. And then you're like, okay, this is where I'm at. I can't go anymore. I might be able to downshift like you talked about. I can come back to this gear, but I can't go any further. And that happens when we stop learning, we stop growing. Here's what Mitch Stevens said. He said, your business will never outgrow you. We must keep growing in order for our businesses to grow. Sorry, I put Mitch Stevens there. That's a John Maxwell quote. I guess Mitch Stevens, the one that was quoting John Maxwell. I just grabbed this off the internet. John Maxwell, leadership guru, your business will never outgrow you. We must keep growing in order for our business to grow. That's the right quote. Anyway, that's the truth of it. I referenced this a little bit, but here's a visual. I'm going to have to describe it for you audio only people. At the top of my slide, it says how people add value. How people add value. And there's an attempt to show a distinction between in an hourly rate between people who are learning, right? First time hourly employees, interns, those types of folks learning at $10 an hour, doing at $100 an hour, right? There's some multiple of value now once that person knows how to do that task well. Some of you have to pay top dollar for highly skilled people that know how to do specific things. So learning and doing are the lower value activities. Think of them as $10 an hour to $100 an hour kind of work. The transition that gets your business stuck, the pitfall we're talking about right now, is that you fail as a business owner to go from learning and doing activities to leading activities. And that's where the leverage starts to happen even more, right? You go from $100 an hour to $1,000 an hour types of value that you're adding to the business. And then eventually, as you grow from 1 to 3 million, and you start to go from 3 to 10 million, at 3 to 10 million, you have to form a legitimate leadership team or even an executive team, right? Those are big company words that happen later, but lead leaders is the next level of value add. And that might be $10,000 an hour work. Now, you might be feeling some sense of exaggeration in the scale here from $10 an hour to $100 an hour to $1,000 an hour to $10,000 an hour work. But that the concept of significant value add difference from one stage to the next is what we're trying to see here. So as you go from learning to doing, there's a much higher value happening. When you go from doing to leading, much higher leverage point, more value happening. Leading to leading leaders, much higher point on a per hour basis of value being added. And we must continue to push ourselves as business owners, especially in this 1 to 2 million range, to go from knowing, learning and doing all the stuff of how our business gets and serves customers today, to leading, and then eventually leading leaders, leading others who are learning and doing, leading leaders who are leading others who are learning and doing, right? That's the progression in how we add value that we must continue to do. And it's one of the primary reasons that businesses get stuck in that 1 to 2 million range. Tom, time for you to weigh in and break the monotony of my voice.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything really for me to add here. I think it conceptually breaks it down very clear. If you're stuck, if you're learning, when you're learning how to do a task, and just doing a task as the owner, it's not as valuable as leading and then eventually leading leaders. So,
Yep.
yeah, I think it makes a ton of sense.
And this is one of the key gear shift moments at the 1 to 3 million mark, that stage that I introduced later. If you're stuck somewhere between 1 and 2 million, it's probably a combination of the things we've talked about today: the mindset piece, the inability or the fear of relinquishing control, and then you learning how to actually lead people. That transition from knowing how to do all the stuff to now learning how to build a team, to set a vision, a compelling vision with that team, so that we're taking aligned, coordinated action, right? And it's targeted, coordinated action where we're all moving together. That's where the magic starts to happen. You get to, that's the gear shift, and you start being able to achieve new levels of result. But it takes you learning how to lead. And here's the thing I want to say about this, Tom, and everyone else. Just like you learned how to sell in order to get where you are, just like you learned how to market, just like you learned how to build out your product or develop your service offerings in a way that the market could not only hear it, but desire it and ask for it. Just like you learned all of those things, the leadership work that has to happen is learnable. You can do this. It's totally doable. Okay, we're bumping up on the end of our time, I believe. So let me get to a wrap-up point. You need to invest in your growth. I put a bunch of stuff on here. Webinars like this that Tom puts on is great. His podcast is awesome. Virtual trainings, books, events, conferences. There are CEO groups, masterminds, peer groups. There's coaching, there's mentoring. There's lots of ways to grow yourself as a leader. Honor what you've built, and there's a better way. That's what my slide says right now. You are the most amazing people on the planet. You are the value creators. You're the ones that put yourself, your finances, your health, your relationships on the line to create something. And I honor that completely. And there's a better way if you want to grow and you're feeling stuck. If you're getting stuck in those pitfalls, there is a better way. I have on the screen now 2 visuals. The one on the left represents the business building work or the organization development, the processes, the systems that you have to do if you want to not just deliver today's results, but you also want to build tomorrow's future for your business. So it's a working on the business stuff. The visual I have on the right is our elite leadership model, and it's the leadership work that you have to do. So there's 2 parts of this. You got to do the business building, the mechanics, the organization work, and you have to do the personal work to grow yourself as a leader. We help businesses all the time with those types of things. This is an example of an upcoming event that we have. It's February 1st and 2nd. There's a way to register for that. There's a QR code if you want to check it out. But we do quarterly events at Elite Entrepreneurs. All of our events are geared towards helping 7-figure business owners figure out how to do these gear shifts that we've been talking about. My last slide is just, if you want some help, you can grab 30 minutes of my time. You can bring your questions. I'll assess your current situation. I'll give you personalized recommendations for how to move forward if you're getting stuck at all, if you're finding yourself in those common pitfalls we talked about today. There are proven methods for how to move forward, and that's all we do at Elite Entrepreneurs, is help business owners like you figure those things out. We do have a Calendly link here, but for those of you who are listening and you can't do that, you just send me an email. My email address is Brett with 2 T's, Brett at growwebinars.com. growwithelite.com. growwithelite.com. All right, Tom, hopefully we landed the plane okay. I've enjoyed being with you. Every time we get a chance to collaborate a little bit, I'm like, Tom's impressive. He's doing good work. Thank you for all you're doing to help those businesses figure out how to franchise and do more good in the world. It's awesome.
Well, thank you, Brett, for sharing and for giving this overview on these three pitfalls and some recommendations and just guidance. And yeah, I mean, my experience in working with Brett has been great. And like I mentioned, I've attended some of his working sessions and training sessions, and I've been impressed every time. And so I would definitely encourage anyone tuning in. I'd take advantage of that free assessment or consultation or discussion with Brett to talk a little bit about your business if you think there might be a fit, or maybe wonder what might be available. So I think it's a wise investment of time. And Brett, I appreciate you being here. Thank you very much. And just again, what's the website for them to go to in addition, just to learn a little bit more about what you're doing?
Yeah, our website is growwithelite.com. Spelled that out before, but just like it sounds, all smashed together. Growwithelite.com. And my email address is brett@growwithelite.com. Those are easy ways. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, other social channels. But yeah, I'd love to connect with anybody who's feeling like they're stuck in that gear and they wanna move forward.
Perfect. Well, I'd love to see if we have any questions from anyone who is tuning in live here. Just give a chance to type into a chat box or raise your hand to unmute if you have a question you'd like to ask. As we draw this to a conclusion here, and let's see, I'm not seeing anything come in right now, but make sure if you do have questions, feel free to ping and connect with Brett. He's offered up a free assessment and consultation. So, Brett, thank you so much for a great presentation. And thank you all for tuning in. Hope you enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you back next week.